It is still funny because of the timing, and a frequent visitor, along with Jim Fowler, is...
For 30 years, The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson was the crown jewel of late-night television. From 1962 until his retirement in 1992, Carson became a nightly companion to millions of Americans, blending sharp wit, perfect comedic timing, and a calm, reassuring presence. He wasn't just a talk show host, he was an institution, shaping what late-night television would look like for decades to come. But what made The Tonight Show so legendary wasn't just the polished comedy or star-studded interviews. It was the unpredictable nature of live television and Carson's unmatched ability to roll with whatever happened on stage. Yet behind the laughter and applause, there were moments that left producers sweating, scrambling to cover things up, and sometimes wishing they could erase them from history altogether. From bizarre guest outbursts to Carson's own cutting remarks, awkward silences, live mishaps, and shocking admissions, the show saw it all. Many of these incidents never aired in full or were quietly pushed aside by NBC executives who wanted to maintain the illusion of late-night perfection. Others slipped through and became legendary stories whispered about in Hollywood circles. Johnny Carson was a master of control, but he couldn't control everything. When the cameras rolled and the unexpected struck, viewers were sometimes treated to moments that were raw, real, and often shocking. These were the times when the mask of late-night glamour slipped, revealing the chaos beneath. Today, we're revisiting 14 of the most shocking moments from Johnny Carson's show, the ones producers tried their best to hide. Some will make you laugh, others will leave you stunned, but all of them reveal why Carson remains the most fascinating figure in late-night history, one of the most unforgettable and most awkward moments in The Tonight Show history came when a guest arrived on set clearly intoxicated. Live television was unpredictable enough, but when alcohol was involved, the stakes were even higher. Johnny Carson had faced his share of quirky or eccentric guests, but this particular incident tested even his legendary composure. The guest, a Hollywood actor known for his hard-partying lifestyle, stumbled onto the stage with slurred speech and unsteady steps. From the moment he sat down, it was obvious to the audience and Carson alike that he wasn't in control of himself. At first, Johnny tried to keep things lighthearted, tossing in a few jokes to diffuse the tension. His skill as a host was unmatched. He could make almost any uncomfortable situation feel like part of the show. But this time, even Carson struggled. The interview quickly derailed. The guest rambled incoherently, veered off topic, and made comments that were borderline offensive. The audience laughed nervously, unsure whether they were supposed to find it funny or feel embarrassed. Johnny, always sharp on his feet, tried redirecting the conversation multiple times, but the actor continued stumbling through answers. What made the moment even more shocking was that NBC executives had to make a swift decision: let the disaster play out live or cut to commercial early. Ultimately, Carson kept the show moving, but the fallout was immediate. The network received countless complaints from viewers who thought the incident crossed the line. Behind the scenes, producers vowed never to let that guest on again. For Carson, who prided himself on professionalism, the moment was a nightmare. Yet it also showcased his incredible ability to stay cool under pressure. While the guest's behavior was a disaster, Johnny's quick wit and calm demeanor turned what could have been a complete train wreck into a bizarre but unforgettable piece of television history. This shocking incident was rarely discussed afterward, and producers did everything possible to bury it. But for those who saw it live, it remains one of the most jaw-dropping examples of how unpredictable The Tonight Show could be. One of the rarest and most shocking events to ever happen on The Tonight Show was when a guest, frustrated and humiliated, actually stood up and stormed off the set mid-interview. For live television in the 1970s and 1980s, this was almost unheard of, and producers did everything in their power to make sure viewers forgot it ever happened. The guest in question was a well-known actress, celebrated for her beauty and fiery personality. She was used to being treated with reverence on Hollywood sets, but Johnny Carson's brand of humor didn't always flatter his guests. Johnny loved poking fun, and while many celebrities could laugh at themselves, this particular actress didn't find the teasing amusing. During the interview, Carson cracked a few jokes about her latest film, which hadn't been well received by critics. He kept it light, witty quips, sarcastic lines, but instead of rolling with the punches, the actress became visibly uncomfortable. Her smile faded, and she gave short, tense answers. The audience laughed, thinking it was all part of the show, but Carson, ever observant, noticed her frustration growing. Then came the breaking point. Carson made a remark about her reputation off-screen, suggesting, playfully but boldly, that she was difficult to work with. The actress froze, glared at him, and then delivered a cutting remark back. For a few moments, the tension was palpable, and the studio audience wasn't sure whether to laugh or hold their breath. To everyone's shock, she suddenly rose from her chair, muttered a sharp comment under her breath, and walked straight off the set, leaving Carson and the viewers stunned. The audience gasped, and then an uneasy silence filled the studio. Carson, never one to lose his composure, smirked, looked at the camera, and delivered a classic one-liner. "Well, I guess she had an early appointment." The crowd roared with nervous laughter, and the show moved on. But behind the scenes, producers scrambled to contain the damage. They cut out the most uncomfortable parts when the episode later aired in reruns, hoping to erase the moment from memory. In the aftermath, the actress refused to appear on The Tonight Show again, and Carson, though outwardly unfazed, reportedly regretted pushing the joke too far. It became one of those infamous Hollywood stories whispered about for years, but rarely shown on screen again. What made this moment so shocking wasn't just the walk-off. It was the reminder that even Johnny Carson, the undisputed king of late-night television, could push a guest past their breaking point. It showed the unpredictable, unscripted nature of live television, and why Carson's show remains legendary decades later. One of the most unforgettable and nearly disastrous episodes of The Tonight Show came courtesy of one of Johnny Carson's most beloved recurring guests, animal expert Joan Embury from the San Diego Zoo. Every time she appeared, viewers tuned in knowing something unpredictable was bound to happen. But one night, the chaos went far beyond what the producers had bargained for. Joan had brought along a selection of exotic animals, including birds, reptiles, and one very large chimpanzee. The animal was trained but spirited, and as soon as it was brought onto the stage, it became clear that Johnny was not in control of the situation. The chimp began exploring the desk, pulling at Johnny's cue cards and swatting at his coffee mug. The audience roared with laughter, but Carson was visibly nervous, leaning back in his chair with that signature mix of charm and worry. Then the shocking moment arrived. The chimp suddenly leapt onto Johnny's shoulders and wrapped its arms around his head. The audience erupted into screams and laughter, but Carson wasn't laughing. He tried to keep his cool, joking, "Well, I always wanted a toupee," as the chimp tugged at his hair, but his eyes told a different story. For a few tense seconds, the studio staff debated whether to intervene or let the moment play out. Just as Carson started to regain his composure, the chimp began banging on his microphone and flailing its arms wildly, knocking over a glass of water all over Johnny's desk. Papers flew, the set rattled, and Joan Embury struggled to bring the animal under control. Carson froze in his seat, giving the audience that classic deadpan expression that made the moment even funnier. Producers, however, were panicked. They feared the chimp might injure Carson, or worse, escape into the audience. At last, Joan managed to coax the animal away, but not before it left the host, visibly shaken. When the chimp was finally escorted backstage, Johnny leaned forward, loosened his tie, and muttered, "Ladies and gentlemen, that's the last time I ever host the zoo." The studio erupted in laughter, but Carson was serious. Backstage, he admitted he had never been so close to losing total control of his own show. Although he did welcome Joan Embury back many times afterward, producers quietly set new safety rules for future animal appearances. They wanted the comedy, but they didn't want Johnny or anyone else getting hurt. What made this moment legendary wasn't just the chaos, but the way Carson handled it. He turned what could have been a frightening disaster into pure comedy gold, reinforcing why audiences trusted him to keep his cool no matter what happened. Still, NBC edited down the wildest parts for reruns. not wanting to show how dangerously out of hand things had become that night. Johnny Carson had a long list of celebrity guests who became regulars on The Tonight Show, but few could match the razor-sharp wit and razor-thin boundaries of comedian Don Rickles. Known as the Merchant of Venom, Rickles was famous for his insult comedy. While audiences loved the banter between him and Carson, one particular night went so far off the rails that even the producers felt it crossed a line. Rickles had been filling in for Carson earlier in the week, guest hosting The Tonight Show. During one of his routines, he accidentally broke Carson's prized cigarette lighter on Johnny's desk, something Carson didn't find out until the next evening when he returned to host. What followed became one of the most talked-about moments in late-night history. Live on air, Carson noticed the broken lighter and demanded to know what happened. When he learned it had happened during Rickles' guest hosting stint, Johnny made a decision that stunned the audience. Instead of letting it go, he left his own set, right in the middle of taping, and stormed across the hallway to the studio where Don Rickles was filming his sitcom, CPO Sharky. Cameras followed. Carson as he barged onto Rickles' set, holding the broken lighter in his hand like evidence in a crime scene. The audience roared as Carson interrupted the sitcom's taping, walking directly onto the stage. He confronted Rickles in front of the live studio audience, playfully but sternly demanding to know why he broke the lighter. Rickles, never one to back down, immediately fired back with his trademark insults, mocking Carson's temper, his hosting style, and even his personal life. But then Rickles took things further than expected. His insults got sharper and more personal, targeting Carson in ways that weren't part of their usual banter. The crowd was in hysterics, but Johnny's expression grew tighter. For once, Carson looked like he wasn't entirely in on the joke. Producers backstage later admitted they were nervous, unsure whether Johnny would retaliate or walk off entirely. What made the moment so shocking was that Carson allowed it all to play out. He stood there taking the jabs until he finally leaned into the camera with his trademark deadpan and muttered, "You can break my lighter, Rickles, but you'll never break me." The audience exploded with laughter and applause. But the tension between the two comedians was undeniable. In the days that followed, NBC trimmed parts of the segment for reruns, worried that Rickles' harshest insults would reflect badly on Carson or damage their on-screen friendship. Still, the full unedited version circulated among insiders and became legendary in late-night lore. To this day, fans remember it as one of the funniest and most awkward moments in Carson's career. What was meant as a light-hearted confrontation turned into a comedic showdown that blurred the line between friendship and rivalry. Johnny's ability to keep his composure, even when he was clearly irritated, once again proved why he was the king of late night.